Welcome to this explainer. Let's get right into it because I am super excited you're here today. We are unpacking something absolutely monumental. We're talking about the sheer, mind-boggling scale of human ingenuity required to keep massive, highly complex machines running safely for decades. I mean, think about your average household appliance, right? Or the car sitting in your driveway. If you get 10 or 15 years out of them, it feels like a total win. But imagine being tasked with building a machine that literally has to endure conditions so intense, so fundamentally hostile, that its very molecular building blocks are under constant attack. Today, we're diving straight into the fascinating world of structural durability in nuclear reactors and the incredible material science that makes these energy giants possible.
So, here's the big question. How exactly does a machine survive 80 years of intense radiation? Really think about that for a second. We're not talking about a machine just sitting quietly in a climate-controlled room. We're dealing with a powerful engine facing unimaginably hostile conditions, a constant, unrelenting barrage of energy. To even begin to answer this, we've got to look way past those massive concrete cooling towers and thick steel walls. We need to go deep inside, down to the actual materials holding the whole operation together.
To guide us, here is a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with the 80-year engineering challenge, then move into molecular degradation under radiation. From there, we'll look at how we shield pressurized water reactors, followed by can-do reactors and metal creep. Then, we'll cover the midlife refurbishment process, and finally wrap up with how we're extending nuclear energy's lifespan overall.
All right, part 1, the 80-year engineering challenge.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty physics and chemistry, we really need to ground ourselves in the sheer timeline we're talking about here. 80 years. That is the awe-inspiring, frankly staggering, operational lifespan that engineers are actively targeting for these complex systems. Just picture it, designing a system today, using today's tech, and having absolute, total confidence that those components will still be safely and efficiently churning away 8 decades from now. It demands an entirely different level of forward thinking. You need a deeply profound understanding of exactly how materials age when they're pushed to the absolute extreme.
Which brings us to part 2, molecular degradation under radiation. To really grasp how engineers pull off this 80-year lifespan, we have to zoom way in. We're shifting from the massive scale of the reactor building right down to the microscopic level to investigate the invisible forces at play. Because, as it turns out, intense radiation causes structural degradation at a molecular level. Usually when we think of wear and tear, we picture friction, right? Gears grinding, belts fraying. But inside a reactor, the intense radiation isn't wearing things down in that traditional physical sense. It is fundamentally degrading the molecular structure of the materials themselves. If you zoomed in on the grain structure of the steel, you'd actually see that the constant bombardment of radiation alters how the atoms hold together over time. It's this slow, completely invisible, structural degradation that engineers absolutely must account for.
Let's look at a specific solution in part 3, shielding pressurized water reactors.
So how do you actually fight an invisible force that's attacking your materials at the atomic level? Well, pressurized water reactors, or PWRs, feature these massive steel pressure vessels that are cleverly protected by water shielding. It's actually a beautifully elegant solution. You've got this incredibly thick steel component holding the core, but rather than just letting that steel take the full, unrelenting brunt of the radiation, engineers use water as a protective shield. That water acts as a buffer. It absorbs a massive amount of the energy and stops severe structural damage from ever reaching the walls of the steel pressure vessel.
And the results of that elegant engineering are wild. We're talking up to 100 years. Because that protective water layer is just so effective at buffering the radiation, the structural degradation is slowed down massively. It's slowed down so much, in fact, that engineers project these heavy-duty steel components could safely operate for a full century. It is a huge testament to how combining the right material science with smart architectural design can totally conquer extreme environments.
But moving on to part 4, can-do reactors and metal creep.
Obviously, not all reactors use the exact same playbook. On one hand, you have the pressurized water reactors we just talked about, massive steel, protective water shield. But on the other hand, you have can-do reactors. Now, these reactors take a totally different approach. They use zirconium alloy pressure tubes that directly enclose the nuclear fuel. So instead of a giant steel pot with a thick water buffer, you've got these zirconium alloy tubes sitting right up against the fuel itself. There is zero water shield buffering the structure from the intense radiation, and as you might guess, that direct exposure leads to a completely different set of material behaviors. That leads us to the absolute core issue for can-do reactors, which is a phenomenon known as creep. Creep is the axial and radial physical deformation where metal slowly elongates and thins out under long-term stress and radiation. This is crucial to understand, because these zirconium alloy tubes are taking the full force of intense radiation and high stress over time. They literally change shape. You have this solid, heavy-duty metal that stretches out. It elongates and thins, almost like incredibly slow-moving taffy. It's a staggering physical reality of what molecular degradation actually looks like in practice.
Now, the timeline for this specific stretching phenomenon is 30 years. It takes exactly 3 decades of continuous operational use for this extreme physical deformation, this creep, to stretch the zirconium alloy metal right to its absolute safety and functional limits. You obviously can't just let the metal stretch forever, right? Because eventually it just becomes way too thin and deformed to safely house the nuclear fuel.
So, what's the fix? Let's get into part 5, the midlife refurbishment.
If your overall reactor is designed to run for 60 to 80 years, but your internal tubes stretch to their limit in just 30, you've got a math problem. Solving it requires a monumental human effort. Step 1, engineers actively monitor and account for that 30 years of metal creep. They know exactly how much the metal is going to stretch. Step 2, after 3 decades, they literally shut the reactor down and physically remove those elongated, thinned-out zirconium alloy tubes. And then step 3, they completely retube the reactor. This is an unbelievably complex process. They are essentially going right into the heart of the machine, ripping out the degraded structural components and swapping them out for brand new ones. Doing this guarantees another 30 years of safe operation. This midlife refurbishment is a massive, massive undertaking, but it is the key to bridging that gap between a 30-year material limit and an 80-year engineering goal.
Let's wrap things up with part 6, extending nuclear energy's lifespan.
We've gone from macro engineering goals right down to molecular degradation and looked at the huge interventions required to keep these things running. But it really all boils down to this one central takeaway. Engineers must account for structural degradation at a molecular level. Whether it's designing massive water shields for PWRs to protect steel for a century, or pulling off incredibly complex refurbishments to replace stretching tubes in CANDU reactors, the core principle is exactly the same. Deeply understanding material durability all the way down to the atomic level is the ultimate key to extending the safe lifespan of nuclear technology. Put simply, if we don't understand the molecular degradation, we have absolutely no chance of maintaining the macrostructure.
Which leaves us with one final, super exciting thought to chew on. As material science continues to advance, how will we engineer the 100-year machines of tomorrow? We're already pushing structural durability to 80 and even 100 years in some cases by outsmarting things like creep and radiation degradation. But as we develop stronger alloys, even better shielding, and deeper understandings of molecular physics, what are the limits? The materials we're engineering today are literally laying the groundwork for the sustainable energy grids of the next century. It is a totally fascinating challenge. I hope this explainer gave you a clear, structured look into the incredible science that's making it a reality. Thanks so much for diving into this with me.